In this video, we're going to discuss surface area and volume. So for the first one, surface area is the sum of all of the surfaces or faces of a three-dimensional figure. So it's adding up all the outside edges and faces of the shape, just like we did in the activity previous to this lesson. We counted out the sides of all the prism, and then we added all those sides together. The next one is volume. Oops. And volume is the amount of space occupied by a figure. So it's the inside, how many little blocks can fit inside of that shape or the prism. So let's talk about when do we use surface area and when do we use volume. So Jeremy wants to know how many cans could fit in his recycling bin. Because we're filling the inside of his recycling bin, that is volume. Karen is wrapping her brother's gift. How much paper will she need? Well, the paper will go on the very outside of the gift box, so that is surface area. How much more soup can a large can hold over a small can? Well, the soup is going inside of the can, so that's volume. I want you to pause. I want you to try the other three on your own. So the amount of aluminum used to make a can of string beans, that's surface area, because the aluminum will go on the outside of the can. How many tissues can fit inside of a tissue box, that's volume. And how much cardboard is needed to make a shoebox, that's surface area, because the cardboard is just on the outside of the box. So if we scroll down, let's talk about how do we actually find the surface area of a prism and how do we find the volume of a prism. So the formula for surface area is right here, and we have that fancy L again, so that's the length, and the W is the width, and the H stands for the height. And it doesn't really matter which side you label as what, but you need to make sure you label it only once. So length, width, and height. So the length is 10, the height is 5, and the width is 2. I want you to label your shape, because if you don't label your shape, you could use one of those measurements more than once. And if you use it more than once, the formula is not going to work out correctly. So make sure you label it so you're only using it the one time in the formula where it needs to be. So the formula for surface area, and I like to rewrite this formula because it's really long right here and it takes up a lot of space. So I'm going to rewrite it like this. Surface area equals, and we're going to stack it up. 2 times length times width, 2 times length times height, 2 times width times height. And then after we do those, you're going to add them together. Okay, so 2 times length times width, 2 times length times height, 2 times width times height. And then after you solve each of those, you'll add them together and you'll get your answer at the end. Now for volume, volume is length times width times height. So you just multiply the length times the width times the height. So let's find the volume for our shape. So the volume is formula, length times width times height. Leave the blanks so that you don't make a mistake. Length times width times height. The length is 10. The width is 2. The height is 5. So 10 times 2 is 20 times 5 still. And then 20 times 5 is 100. So I have 100 centimeters. And volume, because it's the space inside that you're filling up, and you can fill it up with little cubes instead of squares, it's centimeters cubed. All right, let's talk about surface area now. And we're going to use the formula for surface area stacked up. So we're going to say surface area equals. And now for this formula, it's really, really, really important that you're careful when you're plugging things in. So I really highly recommend that you leave the spaces for you to plug in. This is the formula that everyone messes up because they don't take their time. Okay, so now that I have the formula written, I can come back and I can say, okay, well, I know the length is 10, so I'm going to fill in this one 10 and this one 10. And the width is 2, so the 2 goes here and the 2 goes here. It's like on Wheel of Fortune when you're calling letters out. Then the H is 5. Now what you're going to do is we're going to solve each of these and multiply them, and then at the end we'll add them together. So 2 times 10 is 20. 20 times 2 is 40. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 times 5 is 100. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Now all I'm going to do is add those together. So 40 plus 100 is 140. 140 plus 20 is 160 centimeters. And they're little squares that cover it. Remember when we did the activity, you colored in the squares to show the surface area. So centimeters squared. Surface area, area, squarea. All right, let's do another one together. Let's look at the next page. So we're going to find the volume and the surface area. So I'm going to write the formulas down, and I'm going to just put the blanks in. Length times width times height. And I'm going to do the same thing for surface area. 2 times blank times blank. This is length and width. 2 times blank times blank. This is, oops, I'm sorry. 2 times length times width. 2 times length times height. Oh no. And then 2 times the width times the height. So now I need to come over my shape and I need to label them. So I'm going to say the length is 5, the width is 2, and the height is 12. So now I can plug into my formula. Let's do volume first. Length is 5, width is 2, height is 12. Multiply all of those together. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 12 is 120 inches, and it's cubed because volume fills up with cubes. Same thing for the next formula. Length is 5. Play Wheel of Fortune, plug them in where they go. Width is 2. Height is 12. Multiply them. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times 12 is 120. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 12 is 48. Add them together. 120 plus 20 plus 48 gives you 188 inches squared. Area, squarea. Okay, I want you to pause the video. Let's do this shape here, and then you can unpause and check your work. So I want you to find the volume and you to find the surface area. So when we go to find the volume, volume equals length times width times height, and surface area equals 2 times length times width, 2 times length times height, 2 times width times height. And we need to label. We're going to label a length, a width, and a height. And like I said, it doesn't matter which one is which, as long as they're perfectly labeled. So the length, let's do the volume, is 4.5. The width is 13.2. And the height is 10. If we multiply all those together, you can use your calculator. You get volume equals 594 inches cubed. So that's 594 inches cubed. Sorry, my pen's going crazy there a little bit. Now for surface area. Length is 4.5, so I'll plug both of those in. The width is 13.2. And the height is 10. Don't forget when you need to multiply that by that 2 out front. People forget that one. So 2 times 13.2 times 4.5, that's going to give you 118.8. 2 times 4.5 times 10, that's going to give you 90. 2 times 13.2 times 10 gives you 264. Add them together. You were left with 472.8 inches squared, area squarea. All right. Last one I want you to do on your own. Unpause the video when you are ready to check it. And here are your answers for the volume and the surface area. Now I should have told you this up above. As long as, they don't have to be in this order, but as long as you're getting 350, 210, and 750, you may have labeled your length, width, and height different, which is why they could be mixed around a little bit. But as long as you get these when you add them, you will get the right answer at the end. So they might be in a little bit of a different order, but that is perfectly okay.